Hello, number ones. Welcome back to my channel and Metatron's Academy. Thank you very much for being here. We've got a channel to check out. So this channel is called Benjamin Keep, PhD, Insight into Learning, Science and Society for teachers, students, and the science curious. I'm a cognitive scientist specializing in learning and instruction. I focus on how to develop expert reasoning skills and what the heck this beautiful, fascinating thing called science is. So yeah, your average, well, not average, I mean, it's good, but it's your science channel. The reason why I decided to watch it on this channel of mine, the one focused on language learning, is because it does have a lot of stuff about memorization, effective language learning. Now, I don't know anything about the creator, so we'll have to see, but I'm interested in this video. Generally speaking, I love scientific approaches to language learning, but only if they are pushed or presented by people who did reach fluency in at least one language, one foreign language. Maybe this guy knows 10 languages, I haven't got a clue. But I'm just saying this is like an important aspect for me because you can talk all the science you want, like imagine in a situation where you want to talk about how to put on muscles, but if the guy takes his shirt off and doesn't have a single atom of muscle in his body, then I'm not really it's not gonna be trustworthy. But in this case, I think we're gonna see a lot of science. All I'm saying is I don't know about his language ability, but we'll look at this, we'll take it at face value and see what learning your first foreign language, watch this first, he says, 7 things to know. Maybe it's valid, maybe it's not, we'll see. Let's have a look.
I've learned a couple of languages
Good.
now, and here are the 7 most important things that I wish I had known when I was first learning.
Let's go.
Different languages divide chunks of meaning in different ways. If you've never learned a foreign language before, you might think that there's basically a one-to-one mapping between the words in one language and the words in the other language. Now, this is especially true if we're only thinking about nouns. For instance, bag, 袋子, cup, 杯子.
Oh, he's a fellow Mandarin learner. Already give him 10 points for that.
Banana, 香蕉. But each language divides concepts in slightly different ways. It might be easiest to see this with verbs. In English, we can say play the piano and play basketball.
How is it in my native language, Italian? No, we don't say play actually. True. We say suonare il pianoforte, giocare a basket. So they're 2 different verbs. Exactly. Very good point.
But how are these 2 actions the same?
Yeah.
Many other languages would divide things differently.
True.
In Mandarin, for instance, you don't use the generic word play to say play basketball. Yeah. Rather, you use a word that has a meaning closer to the word hit in English. Da. In Spanish, you don't use the word play to say play the piano. Rather, you use a word that's closer to the English word touch, tocar.
Yeah, toccare, that's right. In Italian we say suonare. Believe it or not, it's the same word we use to ring the bell. It's the same word.
But nouns can get in on the action too. In German, there's like 20 different words that can all be translated plausibly as the word bag in English. Wow. German just makes more distinctions about bags than English does. So sometimes you'll be moving from something general in English, which has more differentiation in the target language.
And vice
Other
versa.
times you'll be moving from something that has a high level of differentiation in English towards something more general in the target language.
Correct.
And sometimes you'll have to remake or shift the category boundaries altogether. This is
fantastic presentation so far. This guy's good.
part of the reason that learning individual words without their contexts can backfire. More on that in a moment.
And it's not even just a matter of context, I'm agreeing with him, but it's also a matter of culture. Because culture and language are always intertwined. And I always give this example, but when I was in Japan, I was studying Japanese, of course, and I noticed that like whenever, first and foremost, they have a different approach to when like you give them a gift, they will refuse, usually up to 3 times, is considered polite. And that's already like something that you might want to learn how to navigate when it comes to that, what is considered polite and what is not. But also, the way they use thank you, arigato, and the way they use sorry, sumimasen. Because a lot of the times that as a Western person, I would have said thank you, the Japanese actually apologize. So if I drop my brolly and someone picks it up for me, and I was a Japanese, like I were a Japanese native, oftentimes I'll say, sumimasen, I will say sorry rather than thanking. Some people can say thank you. I'm not saying it never happens, but it tends to be more common to say sorry and apologize in scenarios where, like even with them, when you're offered a gift, we say, oh, thank you so much. Whereas a Japanese will apologize for it. Sumimasen, because the idea is they inconvenienced you, right? Because you got them a gift. And it's a cultural structure that you have to learn to basically think, because otherwise, you know what happens? You're going to speak Japanese, but you're just substituting words, so you're using Japanese as a skin on top of your English. I don't want to speak too much. Let's continue. This guy's good.
Understanding the parts of speech is pretty important.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn a foreign language, it really helps to understand your own language a little bit better. You're probably familiar with words like noun and verb and adjective and adverb and preposition. And whole phrases can serve these roles as well. So you can have a noun phrase or a verb phrase. Maybe you diagram sentences like this in middle school or high school. Just being able to identify the difference between subjects and verbs and objects comes in pretty handy when you are learning a foreign language.
Well, yeah, just have the basics of linguistics. You don't necessarily have to know how to say direct object, indirect object, verb, subject, preposition, and all that suffix in the target language at the very beginning. And to be fair, I mean, I was already fluent in English before I learned how to say hypothetical period, but I could use it. So don't put too much effort, because I've seen sometimes even manuals, like I've got this one here, which just so happens to be handy here. I've got this one, is the Hanyu Jiaocheng. I just want to show you very quickly. This is Hanyu Jiaocheng, which is what I use for at university to study Mandarin. And interestingly enough, at the very beginning here, it gives you a whole description of the speech organs in Mandarin. Don't learn it, it's a waste of time. And when it comes to learning how to say noun and how to say adjective, sure, but don't go too deeply into it. You don't have to become a master linguist to pick up the language. And in fact, it might be a lot of wasted effort. Just learn the basics like verb, noun, adjective, subject, yeah, sure. But don't worry about having to learn the vocabulary a trained linguist would use in the language at first.
There are many languages where the form of the word that you're using changes depending on its role in the sentence. In English, we still have this to some degree with our pronouns. So she went to the store, she is a subject.
Yeah.
But in the sentence, I ran
After her, of course.
her, and I might be referring to the same exact person, her is an object. If you had a strict grammar teacher in school, you might think of these parts of speech as these eternal, distinct categories. But as you learn foreign languages, the boundaries start to blur a little bit. Each language offers its own gloss on these categories, and some languages invent new categories altogether.
He's absolutely right. And in fact, it's going to be more distant when the language belongs to a different family. So if you're learning Spanish as an Italian speaker, you will find a lot of overlap and a few false friends. Whereas when you are learning Korean as an American, you will have to deal with a lot more a situation like this. So you do have to keep that in mind. But then again, still choose the language that you're most interested in, and don't base it on, well, yeah, but that one is harder. Right, but if you do like it, just know that that's something you'll have to tackle, but don't let it discourage you from picking the one that you actually want.
In Japanese, for instance, there's a particle pronounced wa, which is usually called a topic marker.
Yes,
often this particle indicates the subject of the sentence.
私は納豆を食べられません. Yeah, I don't like natto myself. I have to agree with the sentence, with the example sentence.
But it could also indicate the object or even the verb. In Mandarin, many words function as both verbs and nouns without any change at all. For instance, 解释, which means to explain, might also mean 解释,
explanation.
an explanation.
Yeah.
The point of understanding the parts of speech isn't to classify every new word that you learn in a foreign language. Rather, the point is just to have a sense of how the words in a language you know well work together to create meaning. And that prepares you to see how words in a foreign language can work together to create meaning as well. Words don't just have meanings, they also have contexts. One of the first times you might encounter this if you're learning a foreign language is with languages that have a formal you and an informal you.
Which English used to have, by the way, with the thee, thy, thou. You being the plural, formal, there was a distinction, and thou was the singular you. That changed. I want to say something. What did he say just now?
One of the first times you might encounter this if you're learning a foreign language is with languages that have a formal you and an informal you.
Okay.
Both of these words refer to the same person in this case, but they can only be used appropriately in certain contexts.
Registers, different registers.
Same is true of many kinds of words. And it's not just about being more formal or less formal. It's about any kind of possible context that you can think of. It could be as crazy.
That's what I wanted to say. Sorry to interrupt him again. But yes, in interpretation and meaning, context is king. Because there are a lot of scenarios. If I tell you spirits, I could mean ghosts, but I could also mean alcoholic drinks. And context is going to tell you that. And a lot of the times, even though they sound the same, they're written the same, which does happen a lot, like in languages. If I tell you that house is filled with spirits, I mean, which one is it? Well, the context will tell you. Are we talking about an AA meeting and your friend who's trying to stop? Or are we talking about a ghost hunter? Because that will immediately clarify it for you.
As, yes, well, when we're eating breakfast, we use one word to mean this thing. But of course, when we're eating dinner, we use a different word to mean the same exact thing. It's absolutely wonderful to have a dictionary. But looking up words that you want to use or say can get you into trouble if you don't already have some sense of what the appropriate contexts are. If you want to say play basketball in Mandarin and you look up each word individually in a dictionary, you're going to say and think the wrong thing.
True.
There's an important related point here, which is that the written language is often different than the spoken language.
He's correct, but now he's changing the topic. So the difference between written and spoken is absolutely right. There is a massive difference between written and spoken language in all languages, really, in some more than others. But when it comes to the translation with language models, that has become a lot better. And in fact, Google Translate used to be awful at this, but now it has improved a lot. And I believe it's because of AI language models. So this is not too much of a problem anymore, but definitely it's good to point out. Now let's have a look at the situation between written and spoken.
Language. Many words exist in a language without being used very often. True. You can find a word in a dictionary and then try to use it, and a native speaker might just be like, yeah, nobody says that.
Which is great. It's good. That's why you want to interact with native speakers or proficient speakers, even if they're not natives, but it's like a teacher.
Word order is an arbitrary convention.
True.
Nearly everything about languages is arbitrary, but word order feels so natural and right in your native language that it can be hard to see the differences when you confront a foreign language.
Like
it might be
Japanese.
easier to see this in mathematics. Now, normally, I might write something like 7 times 3, but there was an old calculator that I used to use where you would write the first operand, 7, then you would write the second operand, 3, and then you would write the operation that you wanted the calculator to perform on these operands. In this case, multiply. The information contained in both formulations is the same. The calculator still needs those 3 pieces of information to create an answer. But the order that we give those pieces of information could be anything. By the way, if you like this kind of video and you like this discussion, consider joining my learning community in the link below. You get access to a lot more content, a great community of students and teachers, and your support enables me to make more videos like this one. All right, back to the content. Words have both meaning and grammatical functions. Most of the words in a language's lexicon are words that have meaning, like bird and punch and fly. Of course, you can always use these words in creative ways, but there are also words that serve grammatical functions. And in many cases, it's words that have meanings in one context that serve grammatical functions in another.
Chinese does this a lot, and up to a certain extent Japanese does too, but oftentimes they use hiragana for those. Not all the time though, and particularly if you start reading classical Japanese, it gets like it's insane when it comes to this. That's why it's quite difficult to read.
Context. The word have is like this
Yeah.
in English. I have 2 bananas.
It's gonna give the example of it as an auxiliary, like I have gone.
Here, the word have is serving a meaning function. It's about possession or ownership. But in other contexts, it serves a grammatical function. Have you gone to the store yet?
There you go.
Here, have has nothing to do with possession or ownership. It's just a past tense form of the verb to go.
Interestingly enough, yeah, it's to create the conjugation of the present perfect simple. And in fact, you use it for present perfect continuous as well. Italian uses have for this, like in fact, sometimes even more than English does. When you say like, io ho mangiato, I have eaten. But then again, in English, you can also say I ate. Italian tends to always need that auxiliary verb in there. But then again, sometimes we use the verb to be. And so particularly we do it with motion verbs. So I have eaten is not a motion verb. I'm not going from one place to another. I am executing an action or talking about an action that has reached completion in the past. But I'm not moving necessarily. However, if you say, for instance, I have gone or I went to the cinema, then Italian, because it's a motion, it goes from place A to place B, the auxiliary verb is going to be the verb to be. Sono andato rather than ho andato. Believe it or not, some really uneducated Italians do use the verb to have there, and it sounds terrible. So please don't do that. Quindi, io sono andato al cinema, sono andato a Roma, but ho comprato un computer. I have bought a computer. So notice that bought uses the auxiliary to have because it's an action but doesn't require movement, whereas I've gone to a place where I moved, for instance, to another country. Everything that includes a motion uses the auxiliary verb to be in Italian.
This is easy enough to see in your own language, but when you go to learn a foreign language,
of course,
you're going to read a word like have, and you're going to try to interpret it in accordance with its meaning function.
This is for beginners, of course. Once you reach intermediate state, usually you're fine with these. But then again,
when actually it's serving a grammatical purpose. And you're going to be thrown for a moment because it doesn't make sense in the way that it should make sense. New language sounds take time to learn. When you first start learning a foreign language, you may not perceive the sounds that you're hearing very accurately. Just like languages chop up meaning differently, languages also chop up sounds differently. It's kind of like looking at a painting where the colors are all the same. Then the more that you listen, the more that you can distinguish the colors of the painting. Example. This plays a role in both listening and speaking, because if you've interpreted the sound in an incorrect way, then you're going to try to produce the incorrect sound.
He's really good with analogies, like really, really on point. This is spot on.
For instance, when I first started learning Mandarin, I would say this word like this. Dui, dui.
Instead of dui, I see. Well, probably that's because you've seen how it was written, though, in this case.
Dewey. I'm exaggerating only slightly. My wife tried to tell me that I wasn't saying it correctly, but I was thinking that's just what I hear, and I'm just repeating what I hear.
Typical beginner mistake, particularly with tones, when they're like, so it's pronounced cha, and you go, oh yeah, so cha. And they're like, no, cha. And they said, that's what I said, because you're focusing on the sound of the syllables, but you're not actually focusing on the intonation because you think that that's part of just your common natural way of speaking, but it's not, because in Mandarin it's codified. So it needs to sound, it needs to have a rising tone. And this means tea, by the way. 我喝茶, cha. And so if you say cha, it's a different word.
Only later did I start to correct my pronunciation so that it sounded more like 对, 对,
Exactly.
对, 对. It's worth
Which means correct.
taking some time to just listen to the language.
Yeah.
The basic sounds, the intonations, the rhythms, the pauses, the expressiveness. It doesn't matter what the words mean. You just want to soak in the sounds.
Yeah, you want to like kind of get used to it, like acquaint yourself with the sounds so that you'll be able. It does help though to have pointers, because you can absolutely do it on your own, but it's going to take longer, and you might, if you are inexperienced, for instance, you might miss out on some slighter differences. Sometimes having someone to point it out to you and spell it out for you, like this is an actual nasalized sound, whereas in this case it's not. Or like the difference is one is sh, one is sh. So notice the vowel is the difference. Like doing that really helps when you have someone helping you out with that. But yeah, exposing yourself to the language really helps.
And even after you've done that, you're still going to have problems pronouncing the sounds correctly, just because your mouth and your tongue doesn't have experience creating those sounds yet. So you've got to give yourself some time where you're correcting your pronunciation over time. A related issue is that there can be a great deal of variation within a given language.
Yeah.
What we typically learn as foreign language learners is a standard dialect that can be widely understood by a lot of people who speak that foreign language. Don't be surprised if a native speaker pronounces a word in a slightly different way than the way you have been taught.
Or completely different way. Let's be honest about this.
To pronounce this word. Don't be surprised if a native speaker uses a different vocabulary word than you would use in that situation. It doesn't mean that you're wrong, necessarily, although you could be, and it certainly doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Believe it or not, some people are arrogant like that, and they think, oh, he probably mispronounced it. I'm like, hold on a minute, he's a native. So no, he's probably having a regional variety. So in his location, that's the correct way to say it. Simply because you're learning the standard versions, whether it be the 普通话 in Mandarin based on Beijing, but not the same as Beijing Hua. I can go deeper on that. Or whether it be standard Italian, which is generally speaking based on Tuscany, but not the same as Tuscany. Or whether it be whatever you want, General American, RP, received pronunciation in Britain. Yeah, okay, but it doesn't mean that someone from London, Manchester, Liverpool, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and all these places, they all sound different. They're all natives, and their pronunciations are all equally valid. It's just that, generally speaking, we tend to choose the standard, but you don't even have to. So like, I get it. If you learn Japanese, it's nice to learn to talk your way of speaking. But if your wife is from Osaka and you live in Osaka and all your relatives, and you even like the way they speak more, just learn like that. It's going to be harder because you're going to have less material, but no one is forcing you. Okay, so it needs to be a conscious decision.
It just means that there is some marvelous variation in the world out there. And here you can think about all of the wonderful accents that we have in English.
Yeah.
English.
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 All of these complexities are part of what makes learning a language so fun and interesting.
I don't know why he put like little clips of people who, I don't know if they're natives. I would have used native speakers of English, but whatever, who cares? It doesn't matter. It was very quick.
So get out there and start learning your first foreign language.
Okay, thank you very much for the video. Really appreciate it. I'm going to give him a like. You'll find a link in the description and pinned comment if you want to check him out, and subscribe and watch the rest he's got to offer. I have to say, very well made. I'll be interested to know, because I think he said he learned 2 languages. So I imagine one is Mandarin. I wonder what the other foreign language that he learned. And just out of curiosity, thank you for watching. Bye.